Did you know that some of the best endurance runners in the world incorporate Olympic lifting into their training? Well, it's an area that's actually quite new to me, but with so much strong evidence as to its positive effects, I feel it's time to go and find out what all the fuss is about. I've come to our local gym where shortly I'm going to be meeting Indy, a strength coach who's going to be taking me and you guys through an introduction to Olympic lifting. Now, I feel I might need to explain myself here, as you might be questioning what is the relevance of this very skilled Olympic sport to us as runners. But hopefully you know me well enough to know that I'm not going to be taking any time away from my running if it's not in some way going to be benefiting me and helping me to either run further or faster. So before we do share all of those benefits with you, just a quick reminder, if you'd like to support the channel, we would love it if you clicked on the globe and subscribed. There is evidence, lots of it, that supports strength work and lifting for helping runners of all abilities and all distances. However, there's still this perception that it's sprinters who need to lift heavy and fast, and us mere endurance athletes, well, we just need to do high reps of low weights and basically building up resilience, though it's sort of reflecting our sport. That is not true. So explosive exercise, as I'm going to call it today, so basically lifting heavy and fast, is proven to build your strength and power, as you'd expect, but also to help your speed, force absorption, your proprioception, your stability. I think there's quite a lot of things on that list which, as a runner of any discipline, you would want to know more about. Well, Indy, thank you for your time today. I'm quite excited to learn a little bit more about Olympic lifting, and you are the expert. So I am basically going to hand over to you and get you to talk me through it. And in the meantime, everyone can be learning from me as I go. So,
excellent, excellent. Yeah. Olympic lifting is such an umbrella of stuff. So we're going to try and really reduce it down to something quite simple today that athletes can do in their own gym or at home. I'll show you with some dumbbells towards the end as well, so we can do it with different little pieces of equipment. But the first things first that I want to sort of start is our setup. So when you're Olympic lifting, you want to have a nice big amount of space. And if you're in the gym and there's people around you, just so they know, there's going to be a bar flying around the place. So you do need to have a big amount of space around you. But another thing that we want to warm up really are our wrists. So one of the things that I notice most of my clients would get a problem with if it hasn't warmed up enough is their wrists get really sore. And actually once you're in this front rack position, which we'll go into in a bit, if your wrists are nice and flexy, it's not going to give you any problem. If your wrists haven't had as much warm up, or maybe you're not as practiced at Olympic lifting, then they might just get a little bit sore. So we're going to go through some of those warm ups. So if you pop down on the floor with me, one of the ways I like to warm up my wrists, some people it gives them the heebie-jeebies doing this, but we want to face our fingers towards our knees. And then what I do is I just sit back. So I'm really trying to feel that stretch up through the front of my forearm here and get my hand quite used to getting all those wrinkles on the front of the
Let's hide those.
So from there, I might just walk, go around in little circles. That's it. And you can kind of go one way. And then you can change directions.
Feel it more on my knees, to be honest.
Feel it more on your knees. If it's painful on your knees.
I have knelt on the wooden bit. It's my fault.
You can always come back at this or have a little cushion. Have a little cushion. And then from there, what we might do is now try the other way. So we're going to bend our wrist this way and then push back on them. So again, you're going to feel a nice stretch up that forearm. You just get all of those movements around the wrist, holding my hands together like this, drawing a little figure of 8. And then throughout your sets, if you're finding your wrists are just giving you a bit of jip, you can just get down on the floor in between your sets. They might get a bit angry at you, so sometimes I say to people, if the wrists are really starting to cause you some grief during your workout, just leave it there and then come back to it another day. You can get wrist wraps as well, so I sort of recommend those for some people who maybe their wrists cause them quite a lot of issues in their lifts. But if we're warming up our wrists enough, then they shouldn't cause an issue.
Great.
Once we've done our sort of general warm-up with lots of squatting, lots of shoulder mobility, we want to make sure that all of this area down our lats is nice and stretched. So you can do that with some ropes or tying some bands on some on like a top of a squat rack and just leaning back, just getting a nice stretch through there. So once we've got those stretches through the back of the arms, the shoulders switched on, we can actually start to wake up the body. Olympic lifting is explosive. The clue is in the name. It's power lifting it's power cleans that we're doing today. So we want to be generating that power. We don't want to be going into a lift having just been sat at our desk for 9 hours. We want to wake up our legs. We want to wake up our nervous system. So one way of doing that is with the box jumps.
All right, so box jumps.
Box jumps. In loads of gyms, you've got this plyo box. This is a nice wooden one, which might make you jump a bit higher depending on whether you've bashed your shins before. Other gyms have sort of padded ones. They're perfect. If this freaks you out, start with a smaller box. Everyone can jump onto a box. It's all a head game. It's all a head game. So what we want to do is we want to jump as tall onto the box as possible. So I see some people who jump down here. And then they stand all the way up. If you think of the distance my hips have moved, so my hips here, if I jump into that small squat, it's about the same, maybe a little bit higher. If I try and jump as tall as possible, I'm going to get as much hip distance as I can. So way more distance in my hips. You get some people who can jump up with straight legs. I'm not quite there yet. But that's what I would be doing. I'd do maybe 3 sets of 4 jumps or 5 jumps, just to really get the nervous system switched on. You can see that gets my heart rate up as well. Breathing.
Should I do a few now then before we?
Yeah, definitely.
Before we crack on?
Let's get you doing a few.
Okay.
Now our heart rates are nice and high. Definitely. Our central nervous systems are firing. They're switched on. We can now progress to the bar. We want to be warming up our front rack position. All right, I want to get everyone comfortable here, okay? So this is where, if you see the angle of my wrists, this is where that wrist warm up, making sure they're nice and bendy and flexible is going to be really important. I'm creating a shelf with my shoulders, okay? So I'm raising my shoulders up and forward in this position. If they're tucked back, that's against my collarbone. It's not a very nice feeling. So I'm going to get my shoulders up. I'm then going to rest that bar against my shoulders or on my shoulders. From that position, okay, I might just lift my elbows, all right, making sure I'm quite comfortable with the feeling of that bar against me. With a power clean, it's not as important to completely nail that position at the top. If you were going into a squat clean, where you're going all the way down to the bottom and back up again, maybe I'd be a bit more fussed, but actually for now, as a starter, it's okay if you're catching it there. It's okay if, you know, if those wrists are feeling all right with it. If I'm starting from the floor, I don't want to be starting down here, all right? If you look at my shoulders, I'm in a bit of a mushroom shape. So I'm going to pretend that there's a couple of weights on the side, and I'm going to jump this weight up, catch it on my shoulders, a little bit of cushioning in my knees here, then I'm going to stand up. Couple of pointers before we go any further in that. We've got something called hook grip. So a normal grip, I'd be like that. My thumbs are on top. Hook grip, thumbs under. There's nothing that's pulling this bar away from me. If I have a normal grip, that's just going to slip straight out of my hands. Next thing, arms nice and loose. So with that hook grip, I can have nice loose arms. My arms don't really do anything in a power clean and a clean, so my legs can do the work around it. Our starting position, as I said before, imagine there's a couple of weights on the side of this bar, all right? I'm in sort of a semi-squat, semi-deadlift position, okay? So I'm not as low as in a squat, but I'm not as high as if I was doing like a Romanian deadlift. Somewhere in the middle, feeling that load with the legs, arms nice and loose, chest nice and tall, okay? Looking forward, finding a position on front of me to target. This bar is against my legs. Notice that my knees have kind of come out the way for me. All right, I haven't had to move it around anything. I've just pushed through the floor, keep on pushing. From here, this is where my hips can start to open up. This is my jump, jumping, coming up into that triple extension. And then this is where, if you've generated enough power, that bar's gonna float and you're gonna catch it on your shoulders. It's as simple as picking up the bar from the floor and putting it on your shoulders, but we want to do it with the legs. in doing an Olympic lift, we want to break it down into the smallest chunk possible. So at the start, when you've got your start position, all I'm thinking is jump, squat. Jump, squat. The bar will do its own thing, as long as I've got my nice loose arms. For other people, it might be get tall, hips back. So it's finding what cue works best for you. And that's where that practice and practice and practice and drilling it. Put it on your phone, be that person with your phone filming you in the gym. Watch it in slow motion. Am I hitting those triple extension, or is it coming all the way out here? Am I thrusting that bar out rather than it staying nice and close to me? Is that why I feel like it's really difficult? The only difference with the dumbbells is they're not going to be here like the bar is. I'm going to hold them about 45 degrees away from me. So if you've got a slightly dodgy shoulder, or if the wrists are giving you real problems, or you just don't like that front rack position, it does take some getting used to. I would say persevere, but sometimes it's just not going to happen. Dumbbells are a really good way to get in your power cleans and get in that movement, generating that explosiveness, but not necessarily needing that upright position here. So I'm gonna, again, my arms are nice and loose and floppy, puppet arms. And then the rest of my body's stiff, slightly bending over here. So this is my hang position, and then I'm gonna jump, land. If you're in the gym, once or twice a week, you know, you can be hitting the same movement. If you're going really heavy, you know, just watch what volume you're doing. Listen to your body. It is a heavy movement for the body, no matter how light the weight are.
Well,
we felt it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it does take it out of you. So you do have to be really aware of your recovery. But you know, you can be hitting it as many times as you like.
Well, a massive thank you to Indy. I have certainly learned a lot, and hopefully you guys have too, and I'm most certainly going to be watching these videos back on slow-mo to learn from her. But before we wrap it up, just two key take-homes that I want to kind of remind you guys that before upping the weights, really focus on technique when it comes to any sort of lifting, but especially Olympic lifting. And secondly, if you're not doing any resistance training already, please start to incorporate it. It doesn't have to be Olympic lifting, but any sort of resistance work or lifting some sorts of weights will help you with your running. You might not see it directly at the moment, but trust me, it will help you in the long run, excuse the pun. But anyway, I think that is all from us today. So hopefully you have enjoyed this. If so, please give us a like.